From a compilation of writings by Rev Dr Albert Gani, and it has to do with hearing God's music, hearing the voice of God, which kind of ties into the class at Casa de Luz in a few weeks. But the way to understand concepts very easily is to find a myth or mythology to bridge the story. So there is a story about a king called Midas. Now, Plato references the term rich as Midas, maybe you've heard of that, in his Republic. But this Midas was a fabulously rich king, and he hosted this contest between Marsyas, who was the best flute player in the world, and Apollo, who was the god of music. So Midas hosted the contest. Marsyas comes in and plays the most beautiful, joyous tune in the world. And everybody is like happy as a lark. Their heart is exploding. It's just beautiful, happy dancing. And they're like, how is Apollo, god of music, going to top this? Apollo comes in and plays a very sad melody, a sad and beautiful melody. And everyone is crying, sobbing, weeping. And who wins? Apollo. Because people enjoy being sad more than they do being happy. But Midas didn't vote for Apollo, the god. Midas voted for Marsyas, the human, the flute player. And Apollo, the god, gave King Midas long donkey's ears so that he could hear better. Now, this is funny. But there's a moral to this story. There's a moral to this story. The richer you are, the more deaf you are to the gods. The richer you are, as in, the more attached you are to the mundane. The deafer you are to the music of the gods. The more deaf, the more asinine. This is why it says in the Bible, a rich man, or a camel through the eye of a needle. The real translation is a rope in original Aramaic, a rope through the eye of a needle. But it's difficult to hear the call of God when you are entrenched in mundane values. So Midas didn't listen to God's music. He wasn't in tune with what needed to be heard. He was stuck in his own preference, not hearing what needed to be heard, not hearing what he needed to hear. So the donkey's ears have two meanings, really. One is that he's an ass, and two, he's deaf, so he needs long ears. But the rich's attachment to mundane values includes a bloodthirsty desire to dominate, to have power. Why do I flaunt a 4,000 square foot house? For power, to dominate. Why do I name drop the people I know? The famous names. For power, to dominate, to be on top. Why do I flaunt my degrees? For power, to dominate. Why do I flaunt professional credentials? For power, to dominate. Why do I drive a Porsche? I hope no one drove a Porsche this morning. For power, to dominate, to show that I'm better, to show that I'm ascendant, to be on top. They're all crowns. They're all idols. It's the little self, the mask, the false self that is deaf to God. Why? Because it fancies itself to be God. I am God in my Porsche. I am God in my big house. I believe in my own unique way. I am as rich as Midas. Now you may say, well, I don't have a 4,000 square foot house. I don't drive a Porsche. I don't drop my university. I just went to ACC. I don't drop my degrees. Okay, but we do this in different ways, right? I may not have money, but I can be rich in other ways. See me, how smart I am. Now that's a crown. See me, how loving I am. That's a crown. See me, everybody, how loyal I am. That's a crown. See me, how cool I am. That's a crown. See me, how spiritual I am. That's a crown, because they're all self-referencing. They are all self-referencing. I can be spiritual, I can be loving, I can be loyal. And those are divine. But I can also twist them and make them a crown. Self-aggrandize with them. Pump myself up because of them. And to the degree I pump myself up, and to the degree I do this self-referencing show-off, even if I do it silently, I disconnect from the gentle, limpid voice of God. Now, this place of the false self would prefer the performance of a human who can be controlled, who can be bought, and who could be seduced, than the performance of God, of a God who cannot be controlled. Again, this story of Midas has so many layers. I would prefer the worship of an idol that I can control rather than worshiping something I can't control, God. Something far greater than me. Something that overpowers me. So the story continues. Nobody knows Midas has long ears, except his barber. Must have had long hair. But the barber is made to swear he won't tell anyone he has the long donkey's ears, but Midas's barber can't keep it in. So he eventually digs a hole and screams into the hole, Midas has long ears. He had to let it out. So that myth gives us some universal truths, though, about hearing God's music, recognizing God's call, and why we don't hear it. We don't hear it to the degree that we are entrenched in our false self, to the degree we are bound by material reality, form life, and to the degree we are interested in what other people think about us, instead of being concerned with who I am for myself. So there are barriers to hearing the call of God's music. They are doubts. They are rationalizations. They are excuses on the lower self level of our primitive self. But perhaps the most insidious obstruction to hearing the call of God is the search for peace. Peace being a euphemism for not dealing with my problems, for escaping from my problems. It's peace, but it's under the banner of escape and duplicity. Those are rationalizing the peace. Now you see people, nirvana, the greatest state of enlightenment, that it's an immobile place, that nothing happens. Like an inanimate object. The reality is that nirvana, spiritual enlightenment, is a place of dynamic activity. Dynamic activity. The point where receptivity and activity are one. You may be meditating, but a lot is going on. You are moving. You are moving. You are accelerating. Nirvana is a state where receptivity and activity are so accelerated as movement that they become one infinitely vibrating whole. So the person in this state of enlightenment, far from avoiding problems, is consciously taking on problems. Continuously purifying oneself. Purifying the inanimate, making it animate. So if you think that as you progress spiritually, you're going to have less and less problems, you're mistaken. It's a different kind of problem. It's a different kind of struggle. But spiritual progress is the ability to deal with and resolve problems in an accelerated fashion. Sometimes you encounter something and you just know what to say, like, no. Or someone intrudes upon your boundaries and you have the right reaction, like, no. This is a function of progress. That if you didn't say no, you would be creating problems. But I can deal with problems quickly as I grow spiritually. We have an eternity to face our issues. So we can settle down and relax. But our problems will never go away. We will have to learn how to open our heart eventually, for example. I will have to learn how to stand on my own 2 feet. I will have to learn patience eventually. I will have to delegate and learn how to let go of control eventually. The timeline is mine, but it's going to happen. Because these problems will be resolved eventually. Now, what do you think the Christ is doing now? Or if you believe in Babaji is doing, wherever they are. They're continuously considering and resolving problems, and thereby themselves growing. Now, it's a different kind of problem. It's more of a creative problem. It constitutes creativity. How can I solve this problem without being hindered by what we have, which is a lower self, our primitive self? They are beyond that. But they are still solving problems. The Christ is here with humanity, helping each of us grow and evolve. Finding creative solutions. In that place, though, problem solving is blissful. It's exciting. It's a creative process that nourishes them and others. And this is what we're trying to get to, this place where we see our problems as opportunities to grow, to nourish ourselves, to give to others in the process. And it's a benign circle, accelerating ourselves and accelerating humanity at the same time. So one of the prerequisites to hearing this call of God is the acceptance of change. That nature is change. It's continuous and perpetual change. I just saw something that came over my computer. It was talking about, bears hibernate, trees go inside in the fall. But what about us humans? No, we're always going forward. We don't give ourselves the time to recede, to retrench. But that's a part of nature, the change of the seasons, the ebbs and flows of life. Time to go inside a bit more now. Time to reflect on my harvest. Life is change. Everything changes. Like the time prayer we said, people die. You lose friendships. Friendships are lost. People change. This is a part of life. People are born. And we have to accept that as a part of our human existence. But vibrant change is a part of nature. Not stasis, not death. So the search for peace, when it's distorted, is really foolish. The search for no problems is foolish. The real peace that we find in life is through diving in. Through diving in, accepting the struggle, proceeding to resolve it, accepting the conflict, and proceeding to harmonize with it. So it's foolish to believe that renouncing life is going to help you accomplish your task. Like, I'm going to go to a monastery and then I'll accomplish my task. Or I'll go into a cave and then I'll accomplish my task. That may have been true 2 centuries ago. We're living in a different era. Now life is about, and spirituality is about penetrating everyday life. Working a job, but being a spiritual being while I'm working. Being ethical, standing up for truth while I'm living a regular life with family, with my relationships, with my work life. Being a spiritual person in the midst of that. As Yogananda said, being in the world, but not of the world. I live in the world. And this world is beautiful. But I can live in it, but not live of it. I can be centered in my spiritual self while functioning in life. So swamis, monks, all those people who check out and retreat are really depriving themselves of an opportunity to accomplish their task. That checking out and retreating is avoiding the pains of life, which is a part of human existence. And that's what helps us grow. The struggles, the challenges. We are a servant of God when we live our life to the fullest. When we drink the cup of karma to the fullest. And when we do drink that cup, we become a servant. We become a servant in our life, and we hear that call. It's the looking for peace, false peace, numbness, coping, settling, cutting off our longings that create pain. It's going towards the longing, going towards the struggle, going towards what's difficult in life, going towards the conflict, that we find the real peace, the peace of contributing, the peace of accelerating, the peace of this beautiful point of tension between invocation and evocation, between receptivity and activity. There's a quote by Einstein, who was very spiritual. People don't think he was spiritual. Highly spiritual man. He says, everything is energy, and that's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get that reality. It can be no other way. This is not philosophy, this is physics. If we tune into the frequency of God, we will hear that call. If we tune into the frequency of the mundane, we will not hear that call. We will hear the call of new shoes, new car, bigger house, right zip code. It's what we choose to hear. And by purifying ourselves, we heighten the frequency that we hear, to the point we don't even want to hear that lower frequency. We hear it as trash, and all we want is that beautiful divine frequency that creates a reality of beauty, abundance, beyond our wildest dreams. And so let's take a moment and go inside. Allowing ourselves to be impressed by these ideas. That we may let go of our little selves, our primitive selves, the falsehood of the mundane, and to tune ourselves into the frequency of the music of God, the music we can't control, the music that is far greater than us, but the music that will give our lives meaning and utter happiness. And so let's take a moment and we will pass our offering plate.